Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. I would like to make a video in response to a lot of the comments and questions that I got in the Why I Love Finland video to honor the fact that I'm currently in Finland making this video for the time being, and there were a lot of interesting comments and questions there. The first thing I would like to address is the drinking culture thing. So yes, while in my limited experience, I'm sure that there are countries where there's much more of a drinking culture. However, I was a student during most of my time in Finland, and because of the student culture, especially in Lappeenranta, I think, because, people say there's not a lot to do here, was so strong, it's like, you just feel like that's like what a lot of people do. Maybe that was just my perception, or, the people that I knew, or what it seemed like was going on a lot, but that was my experience. Another thing, aside from being a student, is that I did have a master's thesis position while I was here. In the company that I worked at, I remember one morning I walked in the break room and everybody was drinking champagne. And I can't remember if it was because of some sort of actual work thing or because somebody had a baby. I did learn, though, that if you have a baby, then you make pula and you give it to everybody. I guess that's what it's called. Maybe I pronounced it incorrectly, like those little donut things. So yeah, very interesting. And so in terms of standards of living, yes, I do think that on average, not even on average, I'd just say honestly across the board, Finland has a better standard of living than the US. The one way I definitely would say that that's true, aside from the fact that, everybody has access to all sorts of necessary things like housing and healthcare, it has to do with the fact that everything is always under construction and you're like updating buildings constantly. And yeah, I think that's very impressive. It's like when I'm in the US, sometimes I look at these really rundown places that are just like so much money to live in, and I'm like, wow, this wouldn't be happening in Finland. However, there are certain things in the US that I think are just a standard, like the fact that most people live in homes and those homes are pretty big, and then most people drive cars, right? So those things are generally more expensive than if I'm living in Finland, I live in an apartment and I get to just take a bus everywhere and I don't really have to worry about having a car. So if you will argue it strictly from the perspective of, oh, I live in a house and I have a car, then sure, the standard of living in the US could arguably be higher strictly in that sense. But I think in terms of everyday life and in terms of quality of life, oh yeah, there's no comparison that, Finland has a much higher quality. I mean, that's why, even though they're all the jokes, it's like Finland is continuously ranked as the happiest country in the world. It's like, yes, people have access to these things. You don't have to like work as hard just to survive. I think that's a really big thing that happens in the US, and yeah, I'm not a fan of that, so very honestly. Going back to the conversation about Russian and it being spoken, naturally, if I'm spending most of my time in Finland, either in Lappeenranta or Helsinki, it would then make sense, whoever it was that commented about the approximately 2% and 4% in Helsinki and Lappeenranta respectively, then yeah, it would make sense why I think that there's so much Russian in Finland, not accounting for the fact that I actually understand Russian, whereas, I sadly still do not really understand Finnish. I understand random words. I do agree most people in the US will never become rich or ever achieve the American dream. This is becoming especially more prevalent and difficult with housing prices getting out of control and more people like me still living at home with their parents, which I know in Europe is laughable because people in Finland move out at like age 15 sometimes. That's really great. That should be kept up. Winter sports in Finland are something I actually really like, even though I suck at them. Like ice skating, I suck at it, but I like it. And cross country skiing is super fun, and I have a cross country skiing trail near where I stay in Lappeenranta, so I do love that. I joke that Finnish people are born with all these magical talents because they learn from a young age how to cross country ski, how to ice skate, and how to speak this crazy language that is super difficult to learn if you didn't grow up speaking it. So I wouldn't even say low key. I high key want to have my kids in Finland, but yeah, that's a later problem. But I just like super love those things about growing up in Finland, or what I perceive people who grew up in Finland to be able to do that I cannot do myself. So I think that might be it for all of the questions I wanted to address. Now I would like to tell you a very probably dumb story about my experience this morning when I went to the mall, and this one Finnish guy who works for Fordham approached me and was like, hey, do you pay for electricity? And I was like, why? And then he's like, switch your electricity plan and it will save you 15 euros. Americans are all about the saving all the money you can. Apparently that's not so common in the US, but yeah, in the US, you switch car insurances. There are a lot of ways that they try to get you, especially trying to get you to buy more stuff. Yeah, that's why Americans have way too much crap. Okay, maybe that's another reason. I do remember learning that Americans, by comparison to all other countries, have the highest purchasing power in the world. So that's the amount of money you earn relative to the amount of goods that you're able to afford and buy. So maybe that's kind of what I'm thinking of in terms of the high standard of living. Um, but yeah, that's everything that I have in response to that. I'm still jet lagged, so I'm sorry if these videos seem more incoherent and jumpy around than they usually do. Also, I'm very sorry for those of you who think that I'm talking too fast. It's very hard for me to speak slowly in English. I really try when I'm speaking to people who are not native speakers. So if this, I don't think I'm talking too fast in this video, but I know I do sometimes, so maybe just slow down the speed a little bit if that helps, because I'm sorry, it's really hard for me to speak more slowly. That's everything that I have. Maybe I'll respond to some other comments later. But yeah, I mean, I know I'm already catching on with the Russian audience, and now I'm surprised the Finnish people are finding my video about why I love Finland so much as an American. Although, yeah, the Fordham guy in the mall this morning was like, where are you from? And I'm like, the US. He's like, oh, okay, do you like Finland? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And then he was like, oh, that's good. And then somehow it always comes up the winter. Maybe I was like, yeah, just the winters are hard. The first one was really bad, but the other ones have gotten better. Yeah, the first one you just like don't know what's gonna happen. It's terrible. And then the second one I was like, I already know what's gonna happen. It's gonna suck, and I'm gonna get over it and move on in life. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks for your attention. If you want me to react to more things, I guess write them in the comments, since I'm much better at reacting to them in my videos than trying to respond to like the 700 comments I currently have that I really try to respond to in my videos as much as possible. All right, well, thank you everybody for your engagement in this channel, and I hope that I will continue to produce content that you find interesting. In addition to that, if you have any other ideas for what you'd like me to talk about, Finland or the US or whatever, I think I'm going to do a video on NASA at some point. I did one in Russian already, but I need to do one in English. Other than that, let me know. I know I had one about why I studied Russian. Yes, that will be one of my next videos. I'll write that down now, that I need to tell you in English why I studied Russian, not just in Russian. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, and until next time. I'll try to do one tomorrow. I'm good at that in Russian, not in English, but let's see how it goes. All right, bye.